All right, everybody, let's let her rip again. Show number 199. My goodness gracious. Wherever you may be around the world and from coast to coast and sea to shining sea, it's Ham Radio Live. Thank you so much for coming today. Ask people to please subscribe. It's a big thing because it helps people find the channel who just might have an interest in ham radio, being in our hobby, right? That's a big deal. It's a big deal. You know, we like that. That's a good thing. So your subscription to the channel, it really does mean a lot because we can help get people on the air, hopefully, and get them into the best hobby in the whole doggone world, right? It's great to see everybody today. Thank you for being here, wherever you're coming from. Usually 4 continents live, sometimes 5, and to me, that is an amazing, amazing gift. Thank you, everybody. Wow. Well, it's a very special show and a very special day. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Shack and Orient. It's good to see you. Thank you for coming today. My name is Larry. My call sign is Kilo 7 Hotel November. If you've been around before, you'd know the show a little bit. It's kind of like a morning radio show, but it's devoted to radio. And this is 199. This is show number 199. 200's a milestone, for me at least. And I want to, before I say our hellos, I want to thank you for coming to the channel. I want to thank you for subscribing. I want to thank you for being here all this time. There's going to be some changes made in show 200 to go forward to put more amateur radio content here. News, propagation forecasts, de-expeditions, all that stuff is coming starting tomorrow, and I hope you guys truly enjoy it, okay? Welcome to the channel. We're grateful to have you. If you'd like to be in amateur radio, don't be like me a few years ago wondering, how the heck do I get started? I've been DXing for years on shortwave and medium wave, but I'd like to be a ham. Here's a place. Contact the American Radio Relay League. They can be found at www.arrl.org. They're out of Newark, Connecticut, and they're real good folks. If you even live outside the U.S., they will help you get on the path to amateur radio. If you're up in Canada, there's a great group up there. They're called the Radio Amateurs of Canada. You can find them online at www.rac.ca. That's www.rac.ca. For our mates over there in UK, Radio Society of Great Britain, they still have a wonderful survey going on, by the way, through May 23rd. Please fill it out. It's on their website. Contact them at www.rsgb.org. Stands for the Radio Society of Great Britain, one of the best amateur radio societies in all of ham radio. And in Australia, find the ACMA. That's the Australian Communications and Media Authority. This is a mouthful, but it's here. Enough time for a screenshot, right? www.acma.gov.au. And if you'd like to email the show to say hello, have a show idea, or would like to tell me something that you'd like to be maybe a part of a program, especially coming forward, because we are putting a lot of new stuff in that's going to change shows significantly towards amateur radio. We do want to keep the appeal, however, to people who are outside. That's the whole purpose here. We're trying to be different. We're trying to reach people who want to come into ham radio. Not necessarily all the people who are already in it, but to please that group, there needs to be some segments for you too, and those start tomorrow. Please email me at cqhamradiolive@gmail.com. Truly an honor and privilege to see you today. Thank you all for coming. It's truly my honor and privilege to host today's show. Thank you. Let's get into your comments from where you are around the world to say quick hellos. First up, TNCT. It's wonderful to have you. I think the first time you've been on the show. Thank you for coming. Sincerely, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Man, I always love it when I see new people come. It makes me happy. So thank you for coming. I mean that. Yep, 199. Andy Cowley here from the UK. Mate, it's good to see you. Welcome to the show. Good evening to you there in the UK. Thanks for coming. I know it's a little bit late. And James Stanley, on time for what? You're not on time. I'm actually, well, yes, you are. We'll just make it that way. His call sign, Mike 7, Bravo X-Ray Tango from UK. Nice to see you, James. How's the station manager doing? Mine were keeping me running. Otherwise, I'd been here a half hour ago. Joe McConaughey, welcome, my friend. Alpha Golf 7 X-Ray Hotel comes in from the 7th District. Joe, thank you. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, coming into the house all the way from the German frontier, my friends. He's here, and he's one of the neatest guys in all of amateur radio. I'd like to present you Gunter. His call sign is DK5ONV. He's really good at DX work. He loves ham radio, and he's hungry, making calls. Find him online, usually 20 and 40. He's a hard worker. Gunter, welcome to the show, and thanks for coming today. Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Tom, all the way in Bahrain. We're going to celebrate Tom today. His call signs, he's got two, one in the U.S., Alpha Echo 1, Tom Papa. The Bahrain one is Alpha 92 Golf Whiskey. He's so smart, he's got two. Wants three. He wants Bulgaria too. And we're going to show you today just how smart Tom is. It's amazing. It's amazing. TNCT. Ugh, Monday. Don't remind me. I know. That can be that way sometimes, right? In life, it's like, oh, man, we got to start over again. No. Hang in there. It'll be okay, my friend. My brother downstairs, Bob, is watching. Hi, Bob. He's watching via WIFI, otherwise known as Wi-Fi. Thanks, Bob. Good to see you. And my goodness, we got VK in the house. My mate Glenn Stevenson's here from New South Wales. Glenn, great to see you. Man, wow. Mate, it's great to have you here. So we've got the UK, and we got the VK, and we've got the Middle East and North America. Thank you for coming, everybody. I appreciate you being here. Today we're going to do kind of the last part of the first type of ham radio live shows. We're going to go and show a little bit of stuff, and we'll continue to do this. We'll continue to show people doing amazing ham radio things from around the world. We'll also continue to show products and product reviews. That's going to still be a part of things. However, I get a lot of emails from people who are in shortwave and people who DX. We're going to do some things for them as well, and that helps all of us out because we're going to talk about their stuff too. Also, propagation forecasting, de-expeditions, ham radio news, and a whole bunch more. It'll come at the beginning of the shows from now on. Join us tomorrow for show number 200. Should be a lot of fun, and we're going to celebrate you. I thought about that show. How do we do it? Do I show special clips? Do I put something up? Do I do like a montage of old stuff? No, this show's about you. You're the stars of this show. That's what makes it different. So many ham radio shows are excellent. They're so good. They show products. They go into detail about every product and what it does and what that product can and can't do and all of that stuff. And it's wonderful. But this channel, this one, you're the star. You're the one that's in radio. And we want to honor you and you're part of the show. Okay? Okay. We've got Ken in the house. Hi, Rod. Good to see you, buddy. Victor Alpha 3, Foxtrot Union Charlie is here. Thanks. Good to see you all the way in Ontario this afternoon, man. And Kevin, the man that wants the 135-foot tower with 7 beams. Mike 0, Mike Charlie Lima. Weather's a little gusty at the moment there. We have a basketball team here, the Trailblazers in Portland, and they're in Atlanta. They're playing in Atlanta right now. I don't know if you know this, but the weather in the southeast United States is awful right now. It's terrible. They had to be emergency moved out of their hotel this morning because of tornadoes in the Atlanta area. So our thoughts and prayers go for all those in the southeast. I know that the weather's pretty bad out there, so yeah, it's not a good thing. So we wish all of them the best. So Dave, you're here. Look at this. This is Dave Pecoraro. Dave, you're a good man. Whiskey Bravo 4, Oscar Romeo Charlie Slant 7. Hi, Larry. Starting to warm up here in Arizona. Congrats on show number 200 coming up. Thank you. Thanks, Dave. That's nice of you. That's very nice of you. I love Arizona. If you've never been to the state of Arizona, Arizona kind of offers everything. It's like Colorado in a way. Arizona gives you those beautiful canyons, but also, many people don't realize, has the uplands, the highlands. I mean, Flagstaff is like 8,000 feet or so. It's huge, way up there, and it's just beautiful. You feel like you're like in the middle of the mountain forest because you literally are. And then you go all the way down the valley where Phoenix is, and it's totally different. It's just desert with these beautiful saguaro cactus. Oh, man. Arizona is one of the most beautiful places on earth, everybody. All right, well, let's get into this. I want to show you something from the Radio Society of Great Britain. I also want to get into some test questions. We're going to start with 20 questions first, and then we're going to get into the Radio Society of Great Britain. I want to show you some stuff that one of our YouTube people here, that's a very special part of our show, Tom, who's Alpha 92 Golf Whiskey in Bahrain, what he does for a living. This is how brilliant he is. I can't believe it. Wait for that segment. It's going to come towards the 3/4 point of the show. Tom is so skilled at this. But there's a segment I didn't show yet about radio propagation and how the sun helps us. This is important to set up for show number 200 because tomorrow we start propagation forecasts. It's important for people to know who are not in ham radio, who might want to be in ham radio, why the sun is so important to us. This is a great program that was put on by the Radio Society of Great Britain. We'll do this before we do the test questions because it's a good time to show it. Thank you to the Radio Society of Great Britain for a wonderful production. You can find this on their YouTube channel. They do a wonderful job there. Enjoy this bit on what it means to us, the sun, and how much ham radio needs it.
Coronal holes are another solar feature that can affect HF propagation. These are areas on the sun's corona with open magnetic field lines that allow solar material to escape. In an extreme ultraviolet or X-ray image of the sun, like the one on the right, they appear as dark areas. Their effects are similar to that of a coronal mass ejection, but they're not as fast or as vicious, and the effects are generally not as severe. About 2 to 3 days after a coronal hole directly faces the Earth, the solar material from a coronal hole can reach the ionosphere and create a geomagnetic storm with an elevated K-index and depressed maximum usable frequencies. Coronal holes may appear at any time of the solar cycle, but are most common during the declining phase, such as in 2017 and 2018. And just to recap again, any signal that passes through the auroral zone, that's the north or south pole, can cause problems if the K-index is high. So paths like from the UK to Western Canada, VE7, or even W6 in California, W7 up there in Washington State, that can be severely affected if the K-index is high. Now earlier I introduced the term D region or D layer and F layer, and this really shows you whereabouts they are in the grand scheme of things. And these regions, rather than layers, we generally define them as being the D, E and F region, with the D region being the lowest. As far as HF is concerned, we really think of the D region as an area of absorption, or a layer that causes absorption, especially on the lower frequencies. So this is why we don't hear much on perhaps medium wave or top band during the day, because any skywave signals get absorbed by the D region before they ever get to the E and the F region. So any skywave signals going up are absorbed before they can ever come back down again. At night, when the D region disappears, we start to hear signals on medium wave and top band as they're not being absorbed by the D region anymore, and they can now be reflected back off the E and the F region. So going up a little bit now to perhaps 100 kilometers, 95 to 150 kilometers, we find the E region, and this is the region that's mostly responsible for propagating signals in the lower HF spectrum, notably 1.8 to 7 megahertz. It's there during the day, it's still there at night, but it's much weaker. It's very, very weak indeed, but it's still there. Up even further still, we find the F region, which is used to propagate signals in the HF spectrum between 1.8 and 30 megahertz. So if you're hearing a station from maybe the USA on 10 meters, chances are it's being propagated via this F region. During the day it splits into the F1 and F2 regions, and at night it combines into a single F region. Now there is another way of measuring the level of ionization in our ionosphere, and that's to look at something called the critical frequency. It's sometimes shown as FOF2. Now, to do this, we fire a signal straight up into the ionosphere, vertically up, and we see if it comes back down again. Does it actually get refracted or reflected back to the Earth?
This is really important, listen.
And as you can see from this example on the slide, a 5 megahertz signal is being reflected back down from the F2 layer. It comes straight back down to the Earth. Whereas a 10 megahertz signal is going straight up through the F2 layer, straight out into space. So if we were to ask, well, what is the critical frequency here? Well, it's got to be somewhere between 5 megahertz and 10 megahertz. There has to be a point where the signal is not going to be returned back to Earth. And what we find is that at night and at positions in the lowest part of the sunspot cycle, at sunspot minimum, this critical frequency is a lot lower than it is during the day and at sunspot maximum. And we can use something called a digisonde or ionosonde to actually automatically do this measurement for us, and the figures are available on the internet. So again, we can very quickly just look at the critical frequency for our part of the world at that particular time of day, and from that we can actually work out what conditions are going to be like on longer paths. Now on the previous slide we showed a signal going straight up and straight down, so-called NVIS or near vertical instance skywave radiation. And this is the kind of propagation we'll use on perhaps 80 meters or 40 meters when we want to talk to people around the UK. The signals are going to go up at quite a high angle and then come back straight back down again to Earth. So for that, we need to have the critical frequency high enough that it will actually return the signals. And this is why we sometimes find that 40 meters, especially at sunspot minimum, is too high for this NVIS radiation. And we may need to go down to 80 meters to get a signal back to Earth. But not all signals are going to be sent up at high angles. So how do we talk to people perhaps in the US or Australia or some other part of the world? Well, then the signals are going to go off from our station at a much, much lower angle. And as you can see here, as we increase altitude and enter the ionosphere, we have a decreasing refractive index with the ions that are up there. So waves that are sent at more oblique angles slowly getting refracted back until they actually return back to Earth. And you can see here we get a point where we get total internal reflection and the signals get returned back to Earth. This is exactly how we get signals perhaps on 20 meters or 14 megahertz or 10 meters, 28 megahertz from the USA. In fact, they probably undergo 2 hops from the States. So we're getting a hop from the ionosphere and another bounce from the sea or the ground, then back up to the ionosphere and back down again. And so we need multiple hops to get signals right the way around the Earth. Now, as I said, you can measure the critical frequency using something called a digisonde, and we're lucky enough to have one in the UK at the Rutherford Appleton Laboratory. And this, as I said, fires signals straight up into the ionosphere and measures them coming back down again, and it sweeps right from the bottom of the spectrum right the way up to about, I think, 15 megahertz. And from this we then get a graph, and this is an example of one of the graphs on here. What we can see here is that it tells us that the critical frequency, that is the frequency that signals that are going to just be reflected back to the Earth, is 4.625 megahertz. That's the critical frequency for the F2 layer. There's also a critical frequency for the E layer as well, and that's shown on here as 2.91 megahertz. If you see one of these plots, it gives you this information on the left-hand side, or you can actually read it off the graph itself. From this, we can then deduce something else. We can deduce, well, what would be the maximum usable frequency over a longer path? And this suggests that over a 100-kilometer path, about 62 miles, that we could use 5.2 megahertz, or over a 3,000 kilometer path, we could be using 14.9 megahertz. So again, what it's doing is actually working out the maximum usable frequency over a long distance from the critical frequency. It's not actually measuring that distance, it's actually suggesting, well, given this information, we can deduce that the maximum usable frequency over this path would be X or Y.
And you can find this information on the RSGB website. The RSGB website has this information daily.
So they're very useful things, digisondes. And as I said, you can find out more information at ukssdc.ac.uk, as it says on the slide. Now, earlier we spoke briefly about the D layer. And that's this region at about 60 to 90 kilometers that's mainly responsible for absorbing and attenuating signals on the lower bands, although it can be used to reflect signals at VLF. So if we're looking at 160 meters, 80 meters, 40 meters, it's this D layer that's actually absorbing the signals as they go up. So on 80 meters, you may find a condition where you can talk to somebody in the UK in the morning, but around about lunchtime, you find they're not as strong as they were. And that's probably due to this D layer absorption, which is obviously affected by the sun. So in the summer, or around about lunchtime in daylight, then D layer absorption is going to be at a maximum, and conditions aren't going to be terribly good on perhaps 80 meters, 3.5 megahertz. But the actual level of absorption is going to be dependent upon the frequency you're using, the time of day or year, and also the solar or geomagnetic levels. Now, this horrible looking equation actually tells us what the absorption level in dB is going to be like in that D layer. Now, don't worry about it. All you need to know is that the lower the frequency, the more the absorption. It actually goes as the inverse square of the frequency. So you're going to have more absorption at 3.5 megahertz than you are at 7, and even less absorption at 20 meters. So by the time you get 20 meters and above, delay absorption doesn't really play too much of a part. But it does mean that on 80 meters especially, and 160 meters, that's 1.8 megahertz, absorption is a major factor. So during the day or at times of high sunspot activity, they're not going to be terribly good bands to work DX on. So what we can do now is put it all together and see what we end up with. So this first graph is a graph of the lowest usable frequency that can be used at any time in that 24-hour period. And it's going to be related to that D layer. So as you can see, we can use quite a low frequency until the sun comes up. Then the lowest usable frequency will increase as the sun's intensity on the D layer increases. And then as the sun goes down, the lowest usable frequency drops again. But at the same time, the sun's going to come up, it's going to illuminate the F layer of the ionosphere, and the maximum usable frequency that you can use over a given path is going to increase. So we end up with a situation where we want to really work in this channel between the maximum usable frequency and the lowest usable frequency. As you can see, once the sun comes up here at 6 o'clock, the MUF rises quite quickly, and as does the lowest usable frequency. And what we need to really try and do is find a frequency that is somewhere between the MUF and the LUF, and we call it the FOT, or frequency of optimum transmission. And it's this frequency that we probably recommend you to use on any given path across the world. And as you can see, it increases when the sun comes up, and then as the sun goes down, it decreases. So you have to change the frequency that you want to use to work somebody in any given part of the world. Now, that's a lot to take in, and the level of ionization and the maximum usable frequency that you can use across any part of the world is going to be quite complex, because it depends where your signals are actually heading, and also where is the sun? Is it in the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere? That is it in summer in the northern hemisphere, or is it winter in the northern hemisphere? What time of day is it? Where are we in the sunspot cycle? There are an awful lot of factors to take into account. So the best thing to do is use a computer program or the charts in RADCOM to actually work out the best band to use for your particular path that you want for any particular time of day or month. Now, one of the ways of doing this is to use something called VoaCap. And there is actually an online program that you can freely use called VoaCap Online. Just Google VoaCap and you'll find it. So what you can do is you can put in your details, and in this case we're in the UK, so it will give you a map, a hotspot map if you like, of the probability of being able to work these various parts of the world on particular band. So this one was actually calculated for 14.1 megahertz, and you can see at this particular time of day, on this particular time of year, we've got quite good probability of being able to work maybe down into the Atlantic and into the Caribbean, but virtually no chance of being able to work Australia on short path anyway on 14.1 megahertz. So VoaCap Online is a very, very good tool for working out what you can work and when. And so if you know you want to talk to somebody in, say, Brazil, you can actually use VoaCap Online to work out the best band and the best time to actually make your contact. VoaCap Online will also let you do point-to-point calculations. So in this case, what we've done is we put one pointer on the UK, we put the other marker on New York, and it's given us a chart like this. Now you can see this lowest usable frequency and maximum usable frequency actually in action. As you can see, as the day goes on and the sun comes up around about 7 o'clock in the morning, the lowest usable frequency increases, which is due to this D-layer absorption. But at the same time, the maximum usable frequency increases as the sun is illuminating the F layer around the Earth. And so we end up with this channel, if you like, of frequencies that we need to work. So, for example, if you wanted to work New York at around about 4 o'clock on this particular day, it's suggesting that we need to actually look at about 18 megahertz to make the contact. There'd be absolutely no point in trying to use 7 megahertz. That's way too low, and there's too much absorption for that to happen. But then again, it'd be pointless to try and use 10 meters, because the maximum usable frequency is only going to be about 21 megahertz or thereabouts. So again, VoaCap Online, very, very good if you're trying to do point-to-point calculations to work out what band do I need to be on at this particular time of day or this particular time of year to actually make the contact. Vocap Online has another little trick up its sleeve. It can produce a chart like this one. Again, this is for New York, but it's showing us a 24-hour chart of all the bands and the probability of being able to make that contact on that particular path at any 1 hour in the 24-hour period, and the best band to work on. So we can see on the right-hand side of the chart that that's nighttime, and we're not really going to be able to make that contact for on anything higher than about 30 meters, 10 megahertz. But on the left-hand side of the chart, which is daytime, we see that we can actually work right the way up to perhaps 15 meters, 21 megahertz, maybe even a little bit higher. So again, it's a very, very good way of seeing what band at what time you could actually make a particular contact, and also the probability of being able to make that contact. And that's actually what we're talking about. We're talking about probabilities. I can't say to you that on this particular day you will definitely make a contact, but I could say you maybe have an 80 to 100% probability of being able to make that contact, or a less than 20% probability of being able to make that contact if, say, you were trying to do it on, I don't know, 10 meters at night. Probably have a 0 probability of being able to make that contact. But propagation predictions are really all about probabilities and giving you the most accurate probability that we can, given the information we have, although people do always get surprises. So that was Vocap Online. If you want to have your own PC program to make these calculations and actually come up with similar charts, there is a lovely program called VoaProp that uses the same engine as Vocap to actually produce these charts on your own computer. It was written by Julian Moss, G4ILO, who is now sadly silent key. He's no longer with us, but VoaProp is still available and you can download it and run it on your computer. The first thing you need to do is download Vocap and install that on your computer. Then you can install VoaProp on top of that. All the instructions are on VoaProp, so just Google VoaProp and you should be able to find out how to download it, install it and use it. Very, very simple program to use. You just need to tell it what month it is, what the sunspot number is, but it can do that automatically, and then it will show you a graph or a chart of what you can work at what particular time. Now, VoaProp can also do point-to-point calculations. Here's two of them, from myQTH to the Bahamas and myQTH to South Africa. And you see you get totally different graphs. The one for the Bahamas shows you that at night you might need to use 7 megahertz to be able to make the contact, and they're likely to be about S4, S6. During the day, you might be able to use up to 20 meters or maybe even 17 meters, 18 megahertz, and they're likely to be about S1 to S3. But then again, if we look at the same path in October for the path from the UK to South Africa, you'll see that during the day there's probably little chance of making the contact whatsoever. And you're going to have to wait until the late afternoon or evening. And from that point onwards, you're going to be using 18 megahertz and then sliding down to 20, maybe 30 meters, then 10 megahertz, and maybe ending up on 40 meters. So again, VoaProp lets you work out pretty much precisely what band you need to use at any particular time to make that contact. Now, if you're not particularly interested in computers, don't worry, because Radcom has some tables that are produced by Gwyn, G4FKH, every single month, and that will give you a probability figure of 0 to 9 on whether you'll be able to work a station in any part of the world at any particular hour of that month. So they're available in Radcom every month or on the RSGB website. So in conclusion then, let's put it all together and just have a look at what we've discussed. So generally, high solar flux levels and more sunspots are generally good for HF conditions, whereas solar flares, coronal mass ejections that give us high K and A indices are generally bad. These result in high absorption and lower ionization of the F region, so are less likely to be able to give you or support long distance communication, especially if it's over the polar regions. So if you want to know a real-time indication of what bands you should be concentrating on, then Solar Ham will give you the solar flux indices, the K index, the solar wind speed, and the direction of the interplanetary magnetic field, the BZ, which will give you a real-time indication of what bands you might want to concentrate on. The Chiltern ionogram using the Chiltern Digisonde at the Rutherford Apson Laboratory will also tell you the critical frequency at any particular point So that's a real-time indication. Or if you're not too bothered about precisely what's going on at the moment, you can use something like VOACAP or VOAPROP to get an estimate of what you'll be able to work at what time and where. Now, very briefly, spring, autumn, winter are generally better times than HF than summer, as the ionosphere is cooler, denser, and the maximum usable frequencies are higher during the day in spring, autumn and winter. Now that may sound odd. You would think that because the summer there's more sun, maximum usable frequencies might be higher in the summer, but generally the ionospheric composition, the chemical composition, is different in winter than it is in summer. So we find that the MUFs in summer during the day are lower, but we find that the nighttime maximum usable frequencies are higher in the summer. So just to recap then, so that's maximum usable frequencies are generally higher in winter than they are in summer during the day, but the maximum usable frequencies at night are generally higher in summer than in winter. So it may be in the winter that 20 meters closes completely at sunset in winter, as I said, but you may find that 20 meters will support worldwide communication in the middle of summer at night time. So don't just think, well, it's night time, the bands are closed, there's nothing worth listening to. Far from it. You may find in the summer that 20 meters is still open. Now, obviously, we were talking about the northern hemisphere there, so the opposite is true in the southern hemisphere. So this is why it's quite complex. There's an awful lot going on. Now, generally, spring and autumn, around the equinoxes, that's March 21st or thereabouts, September 21st, there we've got equal illumination on both hemispheres, so they're pretty good times for trans-equatorial contacts. So if you're trying to work South Africa, either March or September can be quite good months for that. Or if you want to work, say, across the equator and down into South America, again, spring and autumn can be quite good for that. In fact, autumn is usually quite a good time for HF, and it's very good for working the US as well on the higher bands. And to recap then, as the sun gets higher during the day, D-layer absorption can grow, but the maximum usable frequency rises at the same time. So if you're trying to work a particular path, follow the maximum usable frequency up during the day and then back down again as the sun sets at night. So during the day, you're going to be using 20 meters, 15 meters, 12 meters or upwards. But at night time, as the sun sets, then you're going to be dropping down to be using maybe 10 megahertz, 30 meters, 7 megahertz, 40 meters, or even 80 meters, 3.5 megahertz. If you want to know what to work and when, use the Radcom prediction tables. Or if you don't want to do that, you can then use the VOACAP online facility. Just Google VOACAP and you'll, I think it's voacap.com, and you can actually work out your own charts for any particular path. If you want your own computer program for a PC, then as we mentioned, VOAPROP, HamCap, a paid-for one is AceHF, and another good program that's getting a little bit old now is W6ELPROP, but it's still worth having and worth playing with. Also, I maintain UK monthly propagation prediction charts from the UK, as I said, at g0kya.blogspot.com. So if you go to g0kya.blogspot.com, follow the link on the right-hand side, and you'll find a monthly chart that will let you select a band and an hour, and it will show you where you're likely to work. So you can very quickly compare different bands at different times, or you can compare different times for a particular location. What would be the best best time to work a specific location on a particular band? Well, that's it for this presentation. I hope that you've taken something away from it, and this is a bit of a trial really, and we're hoping to put some others together. But in the meantime then, thanks very much for watching this. This is Steve Nichols.
I'd like to thank the folks at the Radio Society of Great Britain for, I think, putting out truly one of the most effective and clearly described ways of how the sun works. That's beautiful. That's really good. I mean, what they talked about is essentially how we make contacts. And for people who aren't in ham radio and maybe wonder, when they look at the radios, because that's usually where people go, right? They think about ham radio and they see the radios and they say, wow, that looks great. What, 100 watts? That's it? There's nothing. That's why 100 watts works. Because the way the seasons work and the way that the sun works on the ionosphere, it makes 100 watts go thousands and thousands of miles. I mean, you can reach somebody 5,000 or 6,000 miles away or more with 100 watts sometimes. So 100 watts, your standard HF radio today is a fantastic purchase to make. Don't be put off by when you see 100 watts output. 100 watts output is pretty good. Okay? Pretty good. It's pretty good. So, all right. Very good. Let's catch up. We had some people that showed up during that. And by the way, thanks to the Radio Society of Great Britain for a wonderful and well-processed video. Thank you to the Radio Society of Great Britain. You can find them at rsgb.org on the internet. They are wonderful chaps, and they really do a good job. Robert Gerner came in here from California. Kilo Bravo 6, Juliet Foxtrot Lima. Thank you for coming. It's great to have you here today, my friend. Thank you. Thank you so much. My goodness, 99 degrees there today. Nope. Alan Lloyd came from the state of Colorado. He's Rocky Mountain High. They're 50 degrees there, 98 all the way in Bakersfield. There's a difference for you, right? Man, oh man. Whew. We got a new one, a very new person who came in. I want to get to him real quick, and I'm sorry. Call sign is Delta Fox Zero Bravo Charlie, all the way from North Germany. Thank you so much for coming. Man, that's amazing. I just I can't imagine that. I can't imagine that at all. To me, that's astounding. So thank you again. I mean that sincerely. Thank you. Wow. Jeez. Whenever I see someone come in from like another country a long ways away, to me personally, it means a lot because, you see them come in and they're like, man, these guys are, a long ways away. So thank you for joining the show today. All right. So there's how the sun works, how we do things. My goodness, we're 36 minutes in. It's a little late to do 20 questions probably. I forgot that's a 20-minute video. But when you think about amateur radio and how it works and how we make calls and why we're able to make calls and when we make calls, that is an excellent video for you to watch. Now, it's done, I put it in 2 segments because the video is like about 45 to 50 minutes long. It's a really good video, though. I'll make sure that the entire video is in the description section of this show, okay? So you'll have it. All right. And Robert from California, 35 watts here on FT8/FT4 was great yesterday. A lot of sporadic E going on out there. Well done, Robert. And see, what I love about that is he's using it right. He's not using it with 100 watts and 50 watts. He's at 35, which is about the top of what you want to do for QRP. For FT8 and all that. But he's doing it right. He's doing it right. Good job, Robert. Well done. Well done. His call sign, Kilo Bravo 6, Juliet Foxtrot Lima. Yep. So we are going to also, I want to show you something real quick. It's really good. One of our guys for the channel is brilliant. Like on my worst, okay, I could be a genius moment. I have that moment where I'm like Wile E. Coyote, super genius, have a great idea. Nah, this guy is 20 times smarter than me. He actually is one of those computer software designers. I mean, he knows how to write code, serious code for aircraft systems. I mean, we're talking commercial, we're talking military. I mean, this guy is brilliant and he creates simulators. Look at the work he does. His call sign is Alpha 92 Golf Whiskey. His name is Tom, and he is amazing. He's in Bahrain. We talk with him all the time. This is some of Tom's work outside of ham radio and just how brilliant he is. Here's a landing of an F-16 or F-18 fighter jet with Tom at the Look at that. That's brilliant. That's a simulator. He programmed that. And that's basically to teach pilots how to fly an airplane. So that's basically Tom at work doing what he does every day for people to show them flight simulators and fixing them and updating them, repairing them, giving them new ones, make sure they're working right. Tom also, look at this, he does helicopters. Check this out. This is Tom flying in the Middle East because that's where he's based out of, right? He's not in the military anymore, but he works for a company that develops flight simulators. Look at how brilliant this is. Tom creates this. This is some of Tom's work. Alpha 92 Golf Whiskey. This is in a Bell helicopter. Can you imagine? I would love, would that be like an arcade game or something you might play? I would, in a heartbeat. Man, I'd be stuffing dollars in that machine all day long to play that one. That's a great one. Jeez. That's Tom, Alpha 92 Golf Whiskey. He's our super genius software developer for the aviation industry out of Bahrain. Plus, he's also talking about trying to get the radio club set up back in the country. There's only a handful of HF operators here. Plenty of them on VHF, UHF, more I should say, not giant amount, but most are on 2 meters and 70 SEMs. Tom does HF. He told me less than 2 handfuls of people are actually HF licensed in Bahrain. So Tom is working with the IARU to try and bring radio back to Bahrain. And Tom, we're very grateful and thankful you're doing that. That's good. Good stuff. Yep. All right. JJ's back. Good to see you, buddy. That's our JJ. I love JJ because he's got the Roadrunner, and Roadrunner is my favorite cartoon. So I got to say a big hello to him. That's great. Gunter, by the way, in the field, working hard. I don't know if you noticed. He uses a resonant 3-band end-fed halfway vertical, and he's looking to add some more to it, so it's a little better, but he's making calls at night, on 20 meters into Brazil from Germany. The bands are opening up. They really are. Don't, for folks that thinks the band are dead, let's listen. Okay, I know, I've heard it. I get it. There's nobody on bands. I make calls. Look, I was making CQ calls last night forever, literally forever. But I was doing it for a reason. There was a few people from the channel that emailed me saying, hey, you sound a little bit overdriven on your amp. And I was. I was testing out the software for record and play, but I was also listening on web SDRs around the world to hear how far I was being heard. And so part of that was learning a little bit more of the ALS 1306 with the FTDX 101 and its interaction to make sure I could dial it in just perfectly, and was able to do that. So for those emails, thank you. The other part of it was about web SDRs. We're going to show you tomorrow on Show 200 that you can get your own web SDR on the internet from your QTH hearing radio from where you live. That'll be on tomorrow's show. Yep. So that should be a lot of fun. I hope you enjoy it, and it's something that'll help you get going. Glenn says, I would still need a parachute in that flight simulator. Yeah, I'm afraid I would too. That looks pretty scary to me. I agree with you there. So yeah, that's Tom's work in Bahrain. Does a great job. We're so proud of you, Tom. Keep up the great work and keep getting ham radio lively, moving up. In Bahrain, we need more ham operators around the world. Now, for our shortwave and DX folks that watch, I do want you to know that we are going to include you folks in Show 200 and forward. Those propagation reports, the ones that you hear the forecast for, we're going to have a daily propagation forecast. We'll tell you what the show said, what the world is right now. Okay? Now, that's a forecast. Remember, it's kind of like the weather forecast guy that shows up on your television and he may not have it right. Okay, don't shoot the messenger. But we'll have the propagation forecast for you for all the bands, and those include shortwave bands. So keep in mind that will be a help to all our shortwave and medium wave DXers around the world. I hope you enjoy that segment. It'll come in the first 10 minutes of each show. Think of the show starting out after today. As we do welcomes, we explain how you can get an amateur radio, and then we go right to the news. The news will be next. We'll talk about amateur radio news, and we'll end with the forecast. It'll talk about what the current forecasts are and predictions for that very day. So I hope you enjoy it starting tomorrow on Show 200. That'll be a fun show. And you guys are all part of that. So tomorrow, you're the stars, okay? I expect you. You guys got to come tomorrow. Tomorrow's Show 200. So come be a part of the show because tomorrow will be your show. All right, let's take a look at a few more of your comments and we will be about done here. Same time tomorrow. Tom, you know what, Gunter, I got on late today and I'm so sorry, man. I am. The dogs held me up. Tomorrow, strictly hold me to 20 UTC. 20 UTC tomorrow because I know it's 21 right now, but I will do my best to make sure it's at 20 every single day. The only days that's a problem for me is when my brother has medical appointments or I have an emergency one that hits because I do my best to always make sure my appointments are never at that time. Now, Wednesday, with that said, my brother needs his second COVID shot, and they start taking openings at noon on Wednesdays, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. So Wednesday show will probably be we'll try and make it earlier. So Wednesday, think of the show starting at 1800. Okay, it's a great question. So we'll move the show early for Wednesday. It'll be at 1800 UTC. Okay, good question. Fred Durant is here. He's here from Washington State, Belfair to be exact, and we're honored you're here, Fred. Thank you for coming. Thank you so much. Thank you. Will Myers from the state of Wisconsin, Kilo Alpha 8 Golf India. Mike is here. William, a happy Monday, May 3rd to you. Thanks for coming. You know, today, by the way, for movie lovers, if you're a classic movie lover, someone who likes the old shows, the movies, there's a movie that still is very famous today. Typically played around the Christmas season, but you can watch it any time of year. It's a great movie. It's one of those rare movies that there's no villain in it. Did you know that? On today in history, back in 1945, so 76 years ago, the movie with Barry Fitzgerald and Bing Crosby, Going My Way, debuted in theaters. 7 Academy Awards, including Best Director, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor for Bing Crosby and Barry Fitzgerald. And it was the last time the Academy ever let the Best Supporting Actor and Best Actor be in the same category, because Barry Fitzgerald almost won both. He really did. So 76 years ago today, Going My Way debuted in theaters. That's a little nugget of today in history that, you know, isn't ham radio related, but it's kind of neat because, you know, it's an important thing. Also, want to tell you, thank you for being along for the ride these 199 shows. Man, we've went a long ways from opening a box for a FTDX 101 MP way back in the day to today. And the show is totally different than it was. I hope you enjoy what we're going to do going forward. It's going to be the same show. We'll still have fun. We'll still, you know, be lighthearted, and we'll have some sound effects. We'll do the Friday rant. We'll still do that. But we're going to put more technical elements for ham radio in too, to help you be a better operator. The whole goal here is to help people get into ham radio, and those in ham radio to be more effective at it. We'll still have some product reviews for you, and we'll share a lot of great stories from around the world. Good DXers and people who are working QRP. It's going to be a fun ride starting tomorrow on Ham Radio Live. Show number 200. You never convinced me of that when this started. Never. Never in a million years. All right, folks, we're going to do a sign off today. It's going to go short because I've got to go see the oral surgeon. But this one is going to sound like the last one because, well, not the last one, the one before that. Remember we did the one where it was Channel 6 Tijuana? Okay. In the United States, there are some cities that are right along the southern border. Okay. Most likely those being San Diego, Tijuana across the border, El Paso with Ciudad Juarez across the border there. There are some other border towns as well, but no one with cities of 1 million people or more, you know, on both sides. So there are television stations that broadcast in English for U.S. viewers from Mexico, all right? Well, we did one on Saturday's show, which was XETV from Tijuana. At the time, it was a CW station. Well, before then, it was Fox. There was a time when CW and Fox in the U.S. flipped channels. They did. They went from one channel to the other. So in essence, what happened was Fox was on 32 in San Diego, and they got on VHF on Channel 6 later. So they redid the whole sign-off, and I'm grateful to show you the redo version of it that now features also the U.S. national anthem, which is kind of neat. But watch how this is laid out. At the beginning, okay, when they're talking in English, they're showing you Mexico. You're seeing Tijuana from Mount Diablo looking straight out, Mount San Antonio. Mount Diablo's out of LA. Mount San Antonio looking towards the U.S. Then you see the beaches going down towards, down towards Rosarito and all that in Baja. And then when you start taking Spanish, now you're seeing San Diego. It's the funniest way it's set up, but it's pretty cool. I hope you enjoy it. Folks, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for making this ride awfully fun for me, too. I hope to teach people and help them get on the air. We are now to 17 people. 2 more to go, and that gives 19. And today, something happened that really inspired me. Let me show you real quick before we close. I never believed this would happen. Take a look at the bottom. the bottom is the piece that's really important. Watch time from subscribers. I want to thank each and every one of you for subscribing to this channel. Deeply, I mean that. We have hit 50-50. Wow. 50% subscribers to this channel that watch the shows. That is an honor to me. And I want to sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, say thank you to you, because it does mean a lot to me. It's been a pleasure to help show you radio because I love it. It's been a pleasure to help teach radio principles that I can, at least, and help you pass your licenses or license up. It's been an honor to share my life with you and for you to share part of your life with me. Thank you. Thanks for the thumbs up. Thanks for everything. All right, let's get this thing done before I start crying. See you guys tomorrow at 20 UTC for show 200. Until then, my name's Larry. My call sign's Kilo 7 Hotel November. I would love to have you get into amateur radio. You could do so by contacting the American Radio Relay League. If you're in the U.S. or outside, just let them know where you are. They'll find a radio club near you. Find them at www.arrl.org. If you're in the United Kingdom, contact the Radio Society of Great Britain. They're found at www.rsgb.org. They're the folks that put together that wonderful presentation earlier in the show about the sun and how important it is to us here in ham radio. They're an excellent resource, whether you're in the United Kingdom or outside. Make sure you remember that web address. If you're in Canada, the Radio Association of Canada, and there's some big news coming tomorrow from them out of their group tomorrow on the show. Make sure and join us. But if you'd like to contact them and get in amateur radio, now's the time. Sunspot numbers are increasing, and the radios are the best they've ever been. Find them at www.rac.ca. If you're in Australia, we got you covered. Contact the Australian Communications and Media Authority. Some wonderful mates that will help you get licensed. They're there in the Southern Hemisphere, and you could be anywhere in the world and tell them where you are, and I'm sure they're going to help you find a radio club near you. Find them online at www.acma.gov.au. And again, the show email, cqhamradiolive@gmail.com. It has been my honor and privilege to do a show for you today. Please subscribe. Do not monetize here. Do it to give back and help people with radio and get their license. Until tomorrow, God bless you all from Oregon. Goodbye, everybody. Steve, it's an honor. Thanks for coming. I mean that. Thank you. Mike 1, Alpha Charlie Bravo. Steve, I appreciate that. Thanks, my friend. Thank you, Mario. It's so good to see you today. Charlie Sierra 7, Alpha Quebec, India, all the way from Portugal. Thank you. That's our new ham, JJ. Victor Alpha 3, Whiskey, Juliet. Congratulations on that, JJ.
You're watching XETV Fox 6 San Diego. Our transmitter is located on Mount San Antonio, Baja California, serving San Diego and Tijuana. XETV Channel 6 transmits on an assigned frequency from 82 to 88 megahertz, transmitting 100,000 watts of video power and an audio signal of 20,000 watts, as authorized by the Secretary of Communication and Transportation of Mexico.
Está usted viendo XETV Fox 6 San Diego. Nuestro transmisor está localizado en Monte San Antonio, Baja California, sirviendo a San Diego y Tijuana. XETV Canal 6 transmite en una frecuencia asignada de 82 a 88 MHz, transmitiendo con una potencia de 100.000 watts de video y 20.000 watts de audio, tal y como fue autorizada por la Secretaría de Comunicaciones y Transportes de México.
That's all, folks.